based on just their gender. These conversations increase our awareness and, again, remind us of our collective strength, which is super important. The topic of GBV hits close to home, as that was a reason that me and my family fled my home country of Nicaragua to escape that violence. Moreover, I have a particular interest in combating gender-based violence with women, specifically with women with disabilities, because it is an even more neglected community. Did you know that the World Health Organization estimates that about 1 in 3 women worldwide have experienced either physical or sexual, intimate partner violence or non-partner sexual violence in their lifetime? It is rooted in gender inequality, societal norms, and power imbalances, and contains many forms, including physical, sexual, emotional, and psychological abuse. GBV disproportionately affects women and girls, but can also affect men and boys, as well as individuals who are gender non-conforming. Up next, we have another extraordinary and fierce woman, Sarver, here to share her journey as a survivor of gender-based violence, highlighting the pivotal role of legal advocacy in her path to empowerment. Through personal anecdotes and call to action, she will emphasize the importance of collective action in combating gender-based violence and championing the rights of survivors. Sarah, the floor is yours. Let's welcome her to the World Round. There we go. Good afternoon, Grow Up. My name is Sarver, and I'm honored to be here. I'm a political science student at the University of Florida, where my research explores how political rhetoric and gender identity interact with the American culture. I'm a proud daughter, sister, survivor, feminist, and woman. In 2008, a woman came to visit my 5th grade classroom for career day, Michelle Morley. She was a judge, so in my very small rural hometown, her agreement to come speak at our classroom was a very big deal. In fact, she had just recently been elected the first female judge to our circuit. I remember running my finger over the letter that you get if you receive straight A's all year from the county courthouse and noticing that it was a woman's name next to the title, the Honorable Judge. When I got to the front of the line, she asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I said, the first female president of the United States, or if that didn't work out, an Olympic paired figure skater. She smiled and asked me, why not Supreme Court Justice? And that was the first time I can remember wanting to be a lawyer. I had no clue at the time what impact this woman would come to have on my life, or how much I would come to value the American legal system, and how we can use it to advocate for victims of gender-based violence. I stand before you today, inspired by the voices of activists, advocates, and survivors who have courageously broken the silence on this issue. Their stories remind us that sexual violence is not an inevitable part of life. It is a preventable crime, and it is our collective responsibility to eradicate it. Because of my own experiences as a survivor of domestic violence, rape, and sexual assault, after I finish my degree in political science, I plan to serve as a special victims counsel in the Judge Advocate Corps, advocating for rights and protections of those affected by gender-based violence, or GBV. We must advocate for policies that protect their rights and ensure that perpetrators of violence are held accountable. We must start by recognizing that gender-based violence is not just a women's issue. It is the human rights issue. When women and girls are subjected to violence, it impacts their families, their communities, and society as a whole. The economic cost is staggering, but the human cost is incalculable. In the U.S. alone, women experience almost 5 million intimate partner rapes and physical assaults every year. Because of workplace violence, American women are 9 times more likely to quit, 5 times more likely to transfer, and 3 times more likely to lose their jobs than men. Globally, almost 1 in 3 women have been subjected to sexual violence. In 2022, around 49,000 women were killed by their intimate partners or other family members. This means that on average, more than 5 women or girls are killed every hour by someone in their own family. Victim blaming, fear of retaliation, stigma, lack of support, and failure by the courts to provide justice contribute to the unacceptable fact that only 30% of women raped overall and 12% of women raped in college report being sexually assaulted to the police. Only 21% of victims receive medical care, including forensic-grade testing. In fact, the first time I was ever raped, I sought forensic testing out and was turned away over the phone because I was one day beyond the window of time that evidence could be collected, so I never even set foot in the hospital. My female peers have been asked questions like, what were you wearing? Why were you in his apartment with him alone? Were you drinking? Don't you know that this will ruin his life? And why didn't you come forward sooner? With questions and cultural attitudes like these, we are given the message that sexual violence isn't actually violence. Unfortunately, this mindset is part of the problem. We have all been guilty at some point of ignoring these realities, both here in the United States and around the world. And it's not easy to know the right thing to say or do when we hear about Palestinian women who are having emergency C-sections without anesthesia, when we hear about Israeli women who are being raped as tool of terror, when we hear about Ukrainian women who are displaced from their homes, or Congolese women who are beaten by their family members, Ethiopian girls sold into early marriage, Nepalese women who are in human trafficking, or Egyptian women who are experiencing genital mutilation. It is especially crucial to also bring attention to the ongoing humanitarian crisis in Gaza, where more than 24,000 Palestinians have been killed since October, 70% of which are women and girls. The severe impact on women and girls is particularly concerning, with nearly 1 million of these women and girls displaced and facing dire conditions. The international community must address both the immediate loss of life and the broader ongoing humanitarian needs in Gaza, ensuring that the rights and safety of women and girls are protected. What difference is there between us and these women other than we have the privilege of being born within American borders? And it's so incredibly important to use that privilege to stand with our sisters regardless of their nationality, to create a world where GBV is a thing of the past. Making a change can start right here at home. And I'm going to share an example with you of how I did this just a few months ago. It's actually the first time I've spoken publicly about it, and it was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. I testified against my own father in court for domestic violence committed against my mother, my sibling, and myself. He requested to conduct the evidentiary hearing to challenge the temporary orders that we had for protection. You claim your mother was downtrodden, he said, but isn't it true that I allowed her to take on every career and educational opportunity that she's wanted? She has earned many opportunities, I answered him. Well, isn't it true that right before you came, I tried to choke you, that you were staring me down and bowing up to me? No, I answered, because staring someone down is not an excuse for violence. His main argument was an effort to undermine my character and my credibility, which included asking irrelevant personal questions about sexual assault that I survived during college. Isn't it true that you came home from college bitter and man-hating? Isn't it true that I taught you everything you needed to know to prevent yourself from being raped? On and on it went for 3.5 hours. And since he was representing himself, almost 2 of those hours were spent under cross-examination for every allegation we had written against him. Your Honor, my daughter is sick in the head, was his closing words. I hope she gets the help that she needs. So these were the final words that we had come to. And who would expect that something like this could happen? Despite working in the legal field for 7 years, I had never realized that I could find myself in a situation like this, facing my abuser, exposing some of my life's most difficult moments for any stranger in the courtroom to hear. But the silver lining is this. We can use this moment to elevate attention to violence against women around the world with efforts that start right here at home. To combat gender-based violence, we need a multifaceted approach addressing its root cause, challenging the attitudes, behaviors, and social norms that perpetuate discrimination. Education is key. With comprehensive programs promoting gender equality, respect, and consent from an early age, teaching that violence is never acceptable, and everyone has the right to live free from fear. Robust legal frameworks and policies must protect victims and hold perpetrators accountable with adequate funding, resources, and political will. Additionally, we must create safe, supportive environments for survivors, invest in shelters, hotlines, counseling services, and healthcare, and train law enforcement and healthcare providers to respond with sensitivity. Men and boys play a crucial role as well in challenging toxic masculinity and supporting survivors. This societal issue requires all of us to educate ourselves, support initiatives to end the crisis, speak out against violence, and advocate for change. It is everyone's responsibility to contribute to the larger movement creating a world where gender-based violence is no longer tolerated. So reflecting on Michelle Morland's visit to my 5th grade classroom, where her role in the courtroom sparked my early aspirations, I pondered the possibilities of women's leadership in multiple fields. Little did I know that years later, Judge Morley would play a pivotal role in my own journey, presiding over this deeply personal and challenging legal proceeding that I just described for you. This moment, combined with my own experiences as a survivor, has ignited my passion for advocating against gender-based violence and championing the rights of survivors. I recognize what a privilege it is to enjoy this characteristic of our American political system. If we experience injustice in this country, we can work with our lawmakers to change it. Not everyone has this privilege, so it is our responsibility to make the most of it. In closing, let us carry forward the sense of resilience and community, knowing that together we can face the challenges of gender-based violence and emerge stronger on the other side. You are not alone, and there is hope for a brighter future ahead. Thank you.